Spring is in the air and the Cardinals players are in the best shapes of their lives. Welcome back to Cardinals On My Time. I'm Scott Plaza, and today, Josh Jacobs is going to join me to talk the St. Louis pitching competition. There's plenty of innings out there, but who's going to take them? It's good to see you. Thanks for coming. Let's get started with Cardinals On My Time.
If I'm here and you're here, doesn't that make it our time?
All right, before getting into it, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure that you like and subscribe on the Redbird Rundown YouTube channel and Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just so you know, I did end up merging my Cardinals On My Time podcast with Redbird Rundown, so that's where you're going to find me on Spotify and on YouTube as well. Also, please make sure that you comment and let us know your thoughts and feedback on the show. We love to have the conversations with our listeners, so make sure to let us know what you think here. And on Twitter, you can find me at Mr. Plastastic7. Or you can find Redbird Rundown at Redbird Rundown 2. Now back to the main attraction. Today, Josh Jacobs is here, and before I give him the opportunity to introduce all the awesome things he does, I need to give him a shout out really quick. So Josh is a major reason that I'm here, and in turn, you're all here listening to this as well. He's the site expert for Redbird Rants, and he gave me the shot to join the writing staff about a year ago. As I have done this, I was originally planning to do this writing on my time. Here we are. But the more I did it, the more involved I got. And Josh kind of helped me find different ways beyond just writing and how to get involved in different ways. So he's been an awesome guide and mentor as I try to figure out what the heck this is, as we were talking about before, just on the other side of the microphone here. And I've luckily had the chance to meet and talk with him in person, both at Blogger Day and Winter Warm-Up. But enough of that sap. Josh, welcome on. Thanks for joining. Tell the listeners who have not yet heard that magical voice a little bit about you and the path to where you are now.
Well, you called me the main attraction and magical voice, so I'm already set up for failure here. It's not going to live up to that. But appreciate the words you said there, Scott. I mean, I know I've said this to you in private before, but say it on here, think the world of your stuff, man. You do great stuff on the site. You've been doing great with this podcast. You're like you said, you started on your time, but you're in a million places now. So I don't know how you find the time, but it's awesome, and you can do great stuff, man. And so I'm glad that I've been able to be a part of it. But it's all you, man. It's just your ability to step to the plate and do stuff, and whether it was with us or somewhere else, you were going to break out somewhere. So I'm just glad we get to be part of the process. But yeah, I'm Josh Jacobs over at Redbird Rants and do the Deal in the Cards podcasts. We're on YouTube and anywhere you can find audio. If you haven't checked out our podcast before, we'd love if you guys could do that. And been in the space since probably in writing and podcasting since 2023, writing since 2021, I think is when I first started and got into it. It's super fun. And like you said, it's fun to meet you and get to collaborate with you and other creators along the way. And then it's been fun to kind of get more locked in and plugged in with the professional side of things with just following this team. And it's an interesting inflection point. Even just kind of the questions you threw at me for today. It's like, man, what a different world we live in than when even just 1 year ago, let alone 2-3 years ago, the kind of questions we're asking of this Cardinals organization. I mean, I know that they've been bad for a few years now. We've all kind of seen that, but this is the first year they've truly embraced the rebuild. And I'm actually kind of fired up for it. It's fun to dream about what they could be. They're really like a pile of clay on the table right now that gets to be formed and shaped by Chaim Bloom and his staff. And I'm very confident in their ability to do that. And there's a million directions this could go. So even in our conversations today, I think we're going to be a whole lot of, we think this is what could happen, but we'll see. So
yeah. And I think that we're kind of spoiled by blind optimism as well. We've always been around a team that's been positive. I mean, even our down years that we've witnessed, other teams would be like, okay, we don't want to hear it. We've been through much worse, but
when the Cardinals finish 88 and whatever, and people are like, okay, come on.
Yeah, it's a tough world being this Cardinals fans these days, But you're talking about your progression from writing to podcasting and stuff, and progress towards a goal is what brings us here today. And it's a missed opportunity if I didn't talk about this, but Josh, when you were on Redbird Rundown 1, shout out Andrew, I'm sure you weren't this wonderfully finished, well-oiled machine that you are now. It probably took a lot of practice, reps, and just doing the darn thing to kind of figure out what it is that you're doing. So my listeners are unfortunately smack dab in the middle of that Redbird 1 phase, I would kind of say. But it's something that we're hearing that people are always learning, and that's what the major idea surrounding the Cardinals is going to be in spring training, is this learning opportunity and experience. But I do want to give you the chance. We we've talked in private and stuff about the Donovan trade. You covered it, I covered it, every other Cardinal outlet covered it, so I don't want to go too far into it, but you had that connection with Donnie, and the Deal in the Cards live stream podcast that if people make sure you check that out. And he's just the good dude that it seemed like you wanted to be around. So if you want to just do a quick couple minute take on your trade, what Donnie meant for the Cardinals and where this puts the team now.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it made sense why they did it, especially seeing the kind of return they got. It gives me more confidence in Bloom and his staff that they know what they want and they're going to go get it. And if they don't get it, I think they would have held Donnie would be a Cardinal today if they weren't able to pull off the kind of deal they did. The creativity that it took, where we've come out recently, where they were kind of working with third teams all offseason to figure out how do they get the exact return they want, not just settle for whatever they can get from one team. So with all that being said, on the Brendan Donovan thing specifically, it's a bummer. Like, I said it on our reaction podcast that, like, I get why they did it. I still think there's a world they could have extended him and kept him, but I'm not saying like that's a travesty they didn't do that. The travesty to me is that it got to this point and it fell apart so quick that Donnie is a guy that had to be on the choppy block for them. Most Cardinal teams that we follow, this is the kind of guy that, again, he's not going to be the superstar. He's not going to be the top 3 or 4 player on your team, but I think he could be that perfect. I always say complimentary or, complimentary piece is not fair to him. I think he's more than that, but he's not quite the star either. He's this weird, unique type of player that fits in between where at times he gives you like star level production, but just quietly in different ways. But he fits in any part of your team you want, second base, third base. He can fill in at shortstop in a pinch. He's played first base and can't play it before. He played corner outfield. And his bat, I just think, continues to go underrated. You're talking about a guy who's 19% above league average for his career, and that's with basically anytime he's gotten red hot, he gets hurt. Or he's played through the injury. Like, I remember 2023, he was like a 150 WRC plus bat for like 2.5 months, and then they shut him down with the elbow injury. And it's like, man, what would his numbers been like at the end of the year? Who knows? Started the year awesome with like a 140 bat, and then obviously had that turf toe, and then played through it because he's a champ, but that dramatically impacted his numbers. I just think he's so much better than people think. Seattle got a good one. I'm excited that he's in a fun winning situation. They're going to love him. Like I think Cardinal fans did, and I think he should have been a red jacket core guy that people remember the 2020 Cardinals by, and instead we're going to get a glimpse of it, but I think he's going to establish himself as that national presence in Seattle. Again, not calling him Julio Rodriguez or Cal Riley, okay? Like we can have tiers to this, but I think he's going to be an important member of that team, and I'm rooting for Seattle to win it all because Donnie's a great dude, and I like that Seattle team anyway, so adding Donnie's head makes this really fun, but I also lament the fact that he can't be a part of leading this young core. I think that's the exact player you want to look at and say, model your work ethic and team first mentality and just the character, the way you carry yourself. Donnie is the epitome of that. Is the poster child for that. But anyways, that's my Donnie rant. I know everyone's already said their stuff before. People are probably sick of it at this point, but love Brendan Donovan. Wish him the best. I'm doing the Interstellar. No. Whenever I see Seattle stuff come out, or the Wolverine meme where I'm looking at the picture of like,
but he looked good in that teal, man.
He does. It looks so good.
But no, like you said, complimentary is a tough word to say. Like I said, he's that fourth piece, like the Pujols, Roland, Edmonds, Donovan. That like, man, imagine that, like what he could have been. Like even that Larry Walker at the end of his career that did show those flashes or something like that. But
yeah,
anyway, that's the past. So they ended up getting the pitching that they've been targeting with the Donnie deal. They might be a few years away, but let's turn our attention to the guys at the major league level that we're seeing at the newly renovated Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium spring training facility down in Jupiter. Josh, have you ever taken part in spring training in any part before?
I've been down there before, but not like in an official capacity, you know what I mean? So I was thinking of trying to make it happen this year, but I think next year I'm going to try and coordinate some stuff and get down there for some true coverage. But and then, hey, good timing because next year will actually be complete. It's under construction, much like the Cardinals. So it's like kind of there, but kind of not.
Yeah, and it's something that's always been on my list, but then you hear people talking about how expensive it's got to just even turn into like a spring training thing where it's a bummer, but it's something that you got to do. So I'm going to go to my spring training experiences that I went through because I went to 3 spring trainings as a player, 3 completely different. So I'm going to do this really quick and then get into what it is that we're talking about. So when I first signed my first contract with the Schaumburg Boomers outside of Chicago, they had sent me the contract. I signed it. I'm like, oh, nice. I'm really kind of the only person I knew that was playing pro ball and all that stuff. And they said, all right, see you in spring training. And my 23-year-old self, I'm like, oh man, like that's so cool. But there's no details. I'm like, hey, where's spring training? And the GM just simply responds with, it's in Schaumburg, period. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, if that wasn't an omen for what was about to come during my short stint in Schaumburg, I mean, I don't know what was. So anyway, that season ends in a shoulder surgery, missed the next season, but luckily met a guy in Schaumburg, Chris Matthews, who ended up working in Sonoma on the coaching staff. So the Sonoma Stompers may have heard of working with Kelsey Whitmore, Stacy Piagno. They had the female playing baseball, and then also the first openly gay player playing the year before. So a lot of cool stuff going down in Schaumburg. I got the opportunity to do that. He convinced the manager to give me a shot. And shockingly, indie ball spring training does not really compare to major league spring training. When you go to indie ball spring training, you are expected to be in midseason form because you're truly battling for a roster spot. It's like everybody there is technically a non-roster invitee. So I'm there competing against a bunch of different people, but I'm also about 12 months out of shoulder surgery, and they're like coming on to the last day, and they're like, hey, just so you know, it's between you and one other pitcher. Like whoever doesn't make it, there's no minor league camp you're getting reassigned to. It's basically you're back as a free agent along with every other person who's getting let go from indie ball. So anyway, we both battled that last day, and both of us ended up making the team. He ended up cutting somebody that he had set. So I'm like, okay, like that's how this is supposed to work. The difference is like we're ready to go. It's it's June. We don't have this month build up. So got to do that, which was awesome, and turned that into a contract the following season with the Cleburne Railroaders. Last stop in the Scott Plaza spring training train. Got offered, signed, headed down to the Dallas area. Go out there with a pretty mediocre bullpen. It was 170 degrees. My feet were burning through the turf, but it wasn't great. But then I get the text that night from the pitching coach. It's like, hey, come see me tomorrow morning. I'm like, okay, that's never a good thing. But, he did personally bring me in. It was a mediocre bullpen. Maybe he wants to help me out. And he's like, hey, you go see him the next morning. He said, hey, you turn on ESPN yet? And I'm like, no, I'm living in a garage right now. Like that's my host family. They just converted their garage into a bedroom. And he's like, oh, well, we just signed Rafael Palmeiro this morning. And I'm like, okay, like cool. And he's like, so basically Rafael Palmeiro is going to sell more tickets than you are. I'm like, okay. And he goes, yeah, I don't care if he's 53, 57, whatever. He's going to sell tickets. They're going to come to see Rafael Palmeiro, not you. So my stay in Cleburne was about 2 days. But I got to pitch against them later that year. Got the win, 7 innings. But anyway, back to the Cardinals. That was my spring training experiences. So way different than what I'm sure these guys are getting in the Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium renovation. So pitching was a major weakness last year beyond just kind of everything. We got to suffer through 50 starts of Miles Michaelis and Eric Fetty while Michael McGreevy was ready, but there wasn't a spot. Quote, not quote me, quote somebody who's no longer with the organization.
And not quote Ollie either.
Exactly, somebody who's no longer with the organization. Ollie it was pretty clear he wanted McGreevy up earlier, but in the trades, Bloom did get some MLB talent back with Hunter Dobbins and Richard Fitz, and those two kind of made the rotation conversation even more cloudier as it got down to it. So Michaelis, Fetty, gone. Sonny Gray's gone. What does this mean for the rotation now? So Josh, I'm going to ask it to you a couple different ways. The first is, who do you see as guaranteed 100% if camp were to break today? Who is going into the rotation health-wise, assuming that they're all who is penned into the rotation?
Yeah, we were talking briefly about this, but I didn't share the names. I've got 3.5-ish, and I've got I'll explain. I have 2 different halves. I'll put on there, but they don't really combine. It'll make sense when I explain. Matthew Liberatore's got to be a lock at this point, right? Obviously, it was an up and down 2025 year. Obviously, mostly a positive, especially considering you didn't even know if he was going to be in the rotation at all. And then for him to have that year, like you can't walk away from that year being disappointed by it. But I think obviously it's like, okay, at times he looks like a number 2 starter. At times he looks like he can't get out of the 4th inning. Who is he? So I think Matthew Liberatore gets that opportunity again. And toward the end of the year, it seems like he started to stabilize more. So there's a lot of encouraging signs there. Obviously, Dustin May, who's their big free agent signing of the offseason, has to be one of those locks as well. You're really expectations wise hoping for him to put it all together and do what he's done in short stints with the Dodgers, but do it over a first half so that you can flip him for more prospects at the deadline. I don't envision a world where he's here past July 31st unless he's blown out his elbow beforehand. So Dustin May, Matthew Liberatore, and then Michael McGreevy. But I wouldn't say like he's the third person locked in, but I don't think that means he's a number 3 starter, if that makes sense. He might be their number 3 starter, but to me, expectations wise, is can he replicate and maybe even get like 5-10% better than he was last year in his first half season, full chance in the rotation action. To me, I think Michael McGreevy in his best years could produce like a number 3 starter, but I think your expectations wise hoping he's a stable back of the rotation starter. Again, that doesn't sound flashy at all, but when you're talking about a guy making $700,000 versus paying $13 million to get that done, it's a whirlwind of difference in the 22, 23, 24, and then actually the entire 2025 Cardinals, even though they didn't put him in the rotation, could have benefited from an arm that has that kind of cost certainty at such a low rate, but is giving them the production that Gibson, Lynn, Michael, and Fetty were supposed to. And so I think those are the 3 locks. Where I go to the 2 halves is different. So half, as in like a true rotation option, is Kyle Leahy to me, where I think they believe and want him in the rotation, but I don't think it's a lock, if that makes sense. Like Fitz and Dobbins and Pallante and some of these other options we talk about, it's like, oh, they could make it, but they're not like, man, fingers crossed that Richard Fitz is in it. It's like, I think he could be that option, but I think they really are bullish on Kyle Leahy, so I think he has a leg up right now, but he obviously could lose the role to someone else in camp. The other half, I'm going to say, is Pallante. And I think it's because I think he, in my brain, is a lock as like the sixth guy coming out of the camp unless injuries happen or he has a great camp, kind of like Steven Matz was. Or they can start the year early, have him make spot starts to keep the arms healthy because I think they liked that. It's probably not as essential this year at the amount of opportunities they have, but having him in the bullpen, he served this role in 2022, or sometimes he came in late innings, sometimes he was the lawn man, sometimes he was the spot starter. I think Pallante is kind of destined for that role, so I count him as like half an option because I think he'll make starts early in the year, but not because he's in the rotation, but because he's filling that like spot starter type role out of the bullpen. So that's my convoluted thoughts there, Scott. I'm curious how much they align with yours.
Well, the 3 locks are pretty much locks because everybody believes that. So definitely going with Libby, May, and McGreevy. And I think you explained McGreevy in a very... That's exactly what he was. I think that we're just so sick of watching Michaelis and Fetty. We had these just astronomical ace-like expectations just because it was somebody different. And when he did come up, like, it was impressive. But I believe, like you're saying, he's going to settle into whatever that mid-rotation role is. That's something that's definitely valuable, whether it's something that's spectacular or not. It's somebody that you can pencil in like Alexa Dot says that Miles Michaelis is, every 5th day that's going to give you innings and a chance to win. I think that's what McGreevy's going to settle into with some little bit more potential for growth. But I want to get back to the Libby stuff really quick because we agree he's a massive piece. I don't know if you think he's going to be opening day starter. We can talk about that as well. He did tail off a little bit at the end, but for Liberatore in particular, like, what do you think this season means? He's in a really interesting spot contract-wise. He's not a free agent till the 2030 season, but he's already got 2 years of service time, and we kind of have seen what he's going to, some potential, like you're saying, to be as a starter. So what do you expect to see from Liberatore, or like, what does this season mean for his future with the Cardinals, or money-wise, or just anything in general?
Yeah, this is the non-great takey answer is I don't know what I expect from him, if that makes sense, where I'm like, it could go a lot of different ways. I could see him kind of like, I guess what this year means for Liberatore is he a dude or a guy? Is he someone that separates himself from the other group of starters? Because I think right now he's actually closer to Richard Fitz, Michael McGreevy, Hunter Dobbins types than people want to believe. He's shown flashes he can be more than that, but he has not shown the consistency to warrant that he's a separate entity above them. Right now he's in a weird, like, if the Cardinals had Sonny Gray, then I think you tier it 3 ways. You have that true established top of the rotation, or I'm not gonna parse like 2-3 starter, whatever you want to call him now, but he's a dude. Or used to be a dude. You have Libby, who could go either way, and then you have a bunch of guys who are pretty confident are what I call guys. They're not true difference makers. You're probably not trying to extend that guy and keep them long term. They're probably more valuable to you in the first 3 to 4 years of their deal than they are year 5, year 6, or free agent type guys. So is Libby that guy, or is he a dude? And then if he's a dude, is he a dude you build with, or is he a dude you trade to get other prospects? And if he's a guy, what happens? Like, is he here for a little while and then an opportunistic deal comes around and Liberatore's moved for nothing flashy, but just to help this rebuild out, or does he stick around for a while? I think that's what the question here is he a dude or is he a guy? And then depending where they're at, where he lands on a spectrum, and let's just assume he's a dude, how close do they think they are to contending? Because if they believe 2020, by the end of 2027, they're ready to rock and roll, then he's probably a dude you want here. But if you think it's more end of 2028, 2029 where you're ready, then that's actually probably a dude you want to maximize value on, because you could, like, if Liberatore comes out and has an incredible first half and gets to that deadline, or even next off season, and like we look at McKinsey Gore just got, and he's been all over the place at times, but he's had more prospect pedigree and more high levels of success than Liberatore at different times. But like I could see Liberatore commanding returns like that, and that'd be huge for this rebuild if it's still pushed out. If not, though, then okay, you've got one of those arms, and arms don't grow on trees, and you need as many as you can. And he could go down at any point, but so could Doyle or any of these other arms coming up. So as much guys are going to be good when they're healthy, you keep them around. So that's what I think this year means for Liberatore. Is he separate himself from the rest? And if so, does he do so in a way that you keep around? And I think that question has more to do with the state of the organization than it does Liberatore at that point, right? If he's a dude, it's the timeline that matters now at that point, not necessarily his performance, because you know who he is.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. To say, I think it's totally fair to say you're not sure what to expect, and then what it is as far as that means for his future. There's so many questions, and his contract situation is just in that spot to where he's in a good spot with team control, but also in that bad spot to depending where that is going to fall organization wise. But I want to touch on May really quick, and then I'll get into my stuff. And excuse me, I was just reading something that came through. May, I thought that I was a little upset that it wasn't at least a 2-year deal with an opt-out or a club option. You alluded to the fact that you don't think he should be around after the deadline. Is that what you kind of expect from this deal now that it's not a 2-year deal?
Well, I think they do have a club option for the second year, but I think it's a little bit more. I'd have to look on that. But in my head, I think it's a mutual option actually. So I think either could opt out of it. I don't see him being here. I think him being here is a very thin line where he got hurt or something didn't work out, so it doesn't make sense for him to test the market again. But it's not so bad that the Cardinals wouldn't want to try to run it back again this year. I think it's overwhelming likelihood is he's not on the team in 2026 or 2027, or I should say second half of 2026, because he's been dealt. But I think there are scenarios he stays here. I don't necessarily, and I'd be curious if you see one, because I'm all ears on it. I'm not really sure I see a scenario where he pitches so well that they're like, we're going to hold on to him, unless they're like, because I think he can opt out. So then at that point, he probably leaves and gets the long-term deal, and you shouldn't be giving him a long-term deal right now. And then you just kind of take what you can get. Like, to me, it's different than Brendan Donovan, where Donovan, you had the control. You don't have to do it at that moment. But May, if you're probably going to lose him in the offseason, or you're going to have to give him a long-term deal, then you take the highest offer, even if it's not what you wanted. But I'd be curious. I mean, I'm curious if you have an idea of like maybe there is a reunion here, and he is a guy that they end up being like, he stays long-term and is part of this next core.
Yeah, unless the Cardinals are in the hunt, if it was a football graphic at the deadline, there's really no reason for Dustin May to be on the Cardinals in this type of deal, because it is that mutual option or the opt-out that's just not going to be part of it. So there's no point in holding on to him to not get anything. The only way would be if you hammer out an extension on just adding another year, which would be just a whole other conversation. But I think the extension talk would more relate to the rest of the rotation's performance, as if he is seen as the stabilizing force and everybody else is kind of just meh, and now there's more questions. Then I think an extension would be the actual conversation that you would have at that point.
Yeah.
And let's keep going down, and I'll talk about your halves, because I put those into just completely into the competition. With Pallante, I think Leahy is deserving of that chance. They kind of hinted to that. They got the start at the end of the year, and there's no reason for him to not get that opportunity. We talked about how Fitz and Dobbins kind of are in it as well, and they pushed someone like Quinn Matthews, who might have had still an outside chance, but a better opportunity than he does now. Tink Hence is put in just a weird conversation just because of his own situation and now with the pitching depth. But then you also got Bryson Motts, and then you got others to be that next man up. So let's look at, okay, let's say that those two split rotation spot 4, or if you're going to go 5 or 6 man rotation, what do you see sorting through that mess for that last spot or two?
Yeah, I think, again, it's all subject to injuries and performances in camp and all that kind of stuff. But I think if I'm betting today on what the 5-man group is, it's those 3 that we talked about at the top of May, Liberatore, and McGreevy making whatever order. Like, I could see McGreevy making it not being the number 3. But then I would say my next man up is Kyle Leahy, again, because I think they are really bullish on him, and I think they want him to be a part of that mix. And then I think the 5th guy to me at this point is Richard Fitts. I'm interested to see what a Pallante bounce back looks like, and if there's a little bit more stabilization of the results. I also think he fits the mold more of the previous regime and less of this regime in terms of the swing and miss and the upside that he offers. And I think ultimately in a year like this, they're probably more concerned with seeing arms that potentially could rise above and stay than they are to see if there's a guy that can lock in as a number 5. And I think with so many different guys, like, if you look at the context of the Cardinals organization right now and the pitching that they have acquired, it's exciting, but most of those exciting arms are not ready. Like, you're not going to see Clark this year, not going to see Doyle this year. You're probably not going to see, Sajinte this year. You're probably not going to see, there's most of the guys that you're excited about are probably not making it to St. Louis. And so I think you're kind of trying to see which of these guys, like going back to the dudes and guys conversation, which of these guys can be guys for you moving forward and which ones are you not that married to? And do any have an extra gear that you didn't know was there or that you hoped was there, but they haven't shown it yet? And I think Richard Fitts has a little bit more of a gear maybe than I'd say Andre Pallante does. Also, he has more control remaining than Pallante. I think Pallante's a guy who could be dealt the deadline. So that's another way you could look at it, though, is maybe they want to get Pallante out there and show him off, not because he's going to get them a huge return, but he gets them something at the deadline. If he's a dependable starter that's year 1 or 2 at this point. I'm trying to remember which one he's at. I think year 1. So that's where I would probably hedge my bets here, is that 5-man group. But then, and especially Hunter Dobbins, there's a lot of uncertainty right now about how much he's even going to throw in camp. And so that tells me he's probably not part of that 5-man mix, but I think he very much could be in the conversation later. But then you brought up, I think the ultimate upside name that you brought up, I'm just not totally sold on we're going to see this year. And if we do, I don't necessarily know if it's a rotation spot. It's Tink Hence. Or, I mean, again, man, of all the guys who are, I don't even know if I should call him close or not. In theory, he should be close by this point because he's been around so long, but also he's been hurt so much. And I don't think he's thrown an inning at Memphis yet. That's like, is he close? But he's the guy that's like, okay, there's upside in that arm. But it seems like the Cardinals, I think, I don't know if I think maybe Jeff Ponce of Baseball America talked about it. He's like, when they talk to them, they kind of seem like they think he's a reliever at this point, and they're going to try it one more time. But yeah, I do think this is the year we're going to start to see young arms, but I don't know how many of them are like the dynamic, exciting ones of the world. It's more of like who's just going to claim some of those rotation spots in a way they don't have to pay Kyle Gibsons of the world to claim later.
Yeah, and that's the Tink Hence conversation is just an interesting one of, when we've had before, like if they're close, do you just let them up there and then see what you got and then kind of cycle through that?
Yeah.
You mentioned that the guys that we're going to see like Fitz and Dobbins aren't the exciting guys, and that's nothing against them. They have the potential to, if Dustin May were to be shipped, they could be that next stabilizing Dustin May that now they have for the years of control for that cheap options, to where maybe they're not exciting, but they are major league talent. So that's where I think that Pallante, I want to get to where you said he could be dealt at the deadline and where you think that how that could happen and what you would expect or why you think that would happen. But the Quinn Matthews conversation, I think, is one that we're probably just going to have to keep waiting on, because of the 4 guys that they got that might have just leapfrogged him. But he is a lefty if they want to break that thing up. That's someone I would like to see if the Cardinals did a 6-man rotation and an opportunity to get him on some type of starter schedule. But also there's the clock manipulation and all that stuff that, at what point for pitchers in a rebuild where everybody is kind of at that same spot, whose clock do you start? When do you start them? Is it sort of like we just saw with Granillo, where they're just like, there's really no future here, so let's see what we can get with you right now. So let's go back to that Pallante part where you said he could be dealt at the deadline. How do you see that happening? Like, how well does he have to pitch in order to be dealt at the deadline?
Yeah, it's a good question. Also, I want to reiterate, like, what you just said about Quinn Matthews. Like, I don't know why in my head I blanked on him as that other arm. Like, I put him up like in the tin cans category. There's more ups. I personally think there's more upside Quinn Matthews than Richard Fitz, Hunter Dobbins. Like, I still think
Mhm.
there's something there. And so he would be a fun arm that, yeah, at this point, sometime this year, I'd love to see him. But he isn't on the 40-man roster, so that also throws another wrinkle into it of how much, like to your point, not only start the service time clock, but do they want to start the option years this year
Mhm.
already too? I bet they do at some point, but how early we'll see. The Palante side of it, especially if they have other options they can go to, like if they I mean, we'll see how the injuries go, we'll see how the development of some of those AAA arms go throughout the year, but if they have enough guys that they're like, "Hey, 2 or 3 arms could go down the second half and we'll be fine," then I think Palante, if he's pitching I don't even say, like he doesn't have to be like a sub 4 ERA guy, like if he's a guy who can get like another contender could look at it and be like, "Oh, that's a 5th starter that we desperately need right now, and we're not gonna pay him much, we get to keep him for a while." I think that's a guy that they probably wanna maximize value on at this point because I doubt especially because he's already in the arbitration years, and I think you're probably splitting hairs between him and Richard Fitz and Hunter Dobbins at this point. Even Michael McGreevy, like I like Michael McGreevy more than Andre Pallante, but it's not light years better. I think Pallante then becomes a guy that if he's pitching well enough, you try to extract whatever value you can get. I'm not Is that a top 20 prospect in someone's organization? Maybe. Is that a collection of lottery tickets? Probably more likely. The years of control helps for sure because a team can look at it. It's like, okay, we can go out into the open market and pay 12 million next year for a band-aid option, or we've got Palante this year at like 3 million or something like that, and then he'll probably be cheaper than that free agent cost every single year for the next 2 years of his arbitration years.
Mhm.
So that's the scenario I think is, but I think the Cardinals need to have enough depth that they feel good about because I don't think they want to rush like Eshawn Henderson or Bryson Motts into the equation until they have to, or
Mhm.
until they're ready. And so Palante is a guy is a body you can throw out there. And so if they feel good about having enough other arms to make it through, then he's a guy that hits the trade block to me. And does if another team wants him, gives you enough value in your model, you think it's worth moving rather than having that insurance around, then you make that deal.
I think that makes a ton of sense, is the way you're putting it with Palante, especially. Like, he's that body for right now, but what he pitch himself into. But last question about the rotation, and then we'll do a little bit of rapid fire stuff to end this thing out.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to have this rotation settled at the end of spring training? Do you think they want it settled out of spring training, or do you think that
Mm.
they should use it as the cycle of a continuous tryout?
It's a great question. I'm trying to think of what I think they do. I mean, in a perfect world, I think everyone would love for them to be like, think they'd love to look at the group, be like, this is awesome. Like, best case scenario, let's roll with this group. I think the realistic and um opportunistic way they'll probably take it is that they go into they break camp with a 5-man group, maybe a 6th option that gets spot starts. They don't have a quick plug with any of them, but I think by the time May, June comes around, they're ready to shift some guys around as needed. Like I think they probably don't want guys jumping into the rotation and being like, I've got 3 starts to prove myself, or else I'm going back down to
Hmm.
Memphis. But I also don't think they're going to block anybody. Like if Quinn Matthews is dicing it up by the end of April, I don't think they're going to let Pallante or Fitz or Dobbins or I don't think they moved McGreevy out of the rotation, but I
Hmm.
think those 2 extra spots I think are kind of those they could rotate if there's a guy who's earned it and they want to see, but I don't. So I think it's different than last year where Fed either holding on to the last second to move off from that spot. I think they're way more flexible this year, but I don't see it as in they're going to start every other start. There's a new guy out there just to see a different arm. But I also think
Hmm.
the Cardinals have gotten very lucky without injuries last few years, and I'll be very curious if this is another year where they don't see injuries. The Bloom keeps talking about they need to develop edges and legs up on the industry. They might have found one. They might have figured out a
Hmm.
way to do pitch. Knock on wood. I'm so sorry if I'm cursing Cardinals pitchers this year right now, but if they find a way to keep some of these arms healthy, that's like a true edge that they can offer to prospects, but more importantly, free agent starters in the future. Um, but I would assume there's going to be at least a few more injuries this year that free some of that playing time. So I'll go in between of like they're not locked into it, but they're not going to go quick plug either.
And maybe they could have found that balance of the difference between high velocity and the pitch to contact stuff to where maybe 96 to 97 with the ability to find the strike zone is better than 102 and praying where it goes. So I don't know. I don't know when we're going to get the answer. I'd like to see. I'd be the one that'd like to see as many people as possible in this year that are on the 40-man roster already to get that opportunity. So let's finish this thing off with some rapid fire questions. Let's do this just a couple minutes. So keeping this pitching specific, who, Josh Jacobs, are you most excited about this spring?
I'm going to give you spring, and then I kind of cheat and give you another name we're not going to see the spring that I'm so high on still. So my spring name is Quinn. Because it's funny that I forgot about him earlier, or wasn't thinking about him earlier. He's in my notes. Like, I just think of those guys that are there, other than Liberatore and obviously the Dustin May side of it. He's the young guy with obviously no major league experience yet that I think could be more than a four. Like that, I truly do believe is more than a 4 or 5 starter. And some of those other guys could emerge as that, but I think Quinn could be a really, really solid to good middle of the rotation, maybe even borderline number 2 starter at some point in his career if he can figure out that swing and miss. He's had such an incredible 2024 campaign that the 2025 year obviously was a stunt in growth for him. We'll see what happens, how he responds to it. But I think if he comes out firing like he did in 2024, the industry is going to be very excited about him again. He was Baseball America Pitcher of the Year, he was Minor League Pitcher of the Year for the Cardinals too. Like he just had he swept all the awards and was like, I think besides Brandon Pfaadt was the only pitcher to strike out over 200 batters in a season since like 2012 or something like that. And now a lot of times we don't even think about him anymore. So I'm very excited to see Quinn Matthews.
Okay.
But then my name that we're not going to see that I'm higher on than a lot of people is Cooper Jerpy. I just still think that dude has elite stuff. Could end up being a bullpen arm long term, but I can't wait for him to get back on a mound and healthy. And I really hope this regime gives him enough time in the rotation to prove it. Because when he's had starts, he's had 2024 where he had 2 no-hitters going that they pulled him from. Like that dude's dominant when he's on the mound. I know he doesn't throw high velocity, but he's just so nasty with that arm angle too. So I'm very high on Cooper Jerpy as a rotation option long term.
Interesting, because Jerpy is one that I was actually surprised they gave him that 40-man spot, but that's not because I'm down on him. It's just because of the injury history that I don't know if he would have gotten claimed, but I think there's been enough potential with that. Okay, moving on. Number 2, is there anybody, major league, minor league, that you are throwing the towel in on?
Yeah, pitcher specific. I guess I've kind of alluded to it. The Andre Pallante side of it, I'm kind of like, it's almost like what we talked about with Michael McGreevy, how we got really high on him because there was just nothing else there. And like, I think realistically, again, he's a real, and it's nothing. It's when I say like he's a back in the rotation starter, it's not a diss on him. It's like it's a good thing. Pallante is one where if you look at the Cardinals in the 2020s before this past year, he was easily the most accomplished young arm they developed in the 2020s, which is a problem. And I was hopeful we were going to see more from him last year, and it clearly kind of fell off the trail or fell off the rails a little bit here. I don't think he's as bad as he was at times last year, but with all the other pitching depth they've acquired, I just don't see him being someone that's with the team beyond maybe 2027, max 2028. I just think once he's in those late arbitration years, I think there's going to be other arms ready to go. And so I'm pretty low on Andre Pallante's long-term future of the Cardinals at this point.
Yeah, I was looking at just the roster in general. He is the current rotation leader in career starts, wins, and innings pitched in the rotation. So, like you said, says more about maybe where the state of the rotation is. But that, I don't know if this will be the same answer as number 1, but for number 3, who is your candidate to explode in the prospect scene? Maybe that we've not heard of or that we forgot about. Who do you think could jump back into either the national scene or just moving up the top 30 board?
I'll go different. I'll go, I mean, I know he was a big name this offseason they acquired, but Brandon Clark, I just think could end up being the Cardinals. I think he rival or pass Liam Doyle as their top pitching prospect. He's got that kind of stuff. Would I bet on that? No, Liam Doyle to me is the clear number 1 right now. But I think Brandon Clark could easily throw himself in not just top 100 conversations. We're talking about top 60, top 50. You're talking about a guy with some of the best specs on a sweeper slider in all the sport. Like it's elite. And he also pumps over 100. Like, okay. When was last time? I mean, like very rarely do the Cardinals have guys who have that kind of stuff. And Doyle's already got, I mean, he's already top 35, top 40 prospect most places. So it's kind of hard to say he's a dark horse at this point. And now Brandon Clark's not really a dark horse, but to me, I think he's a dark horse to ascend to a category of starting pitcher prospect that truly is a difference maker. And then that Sonny Gray trade looks incredible at that point. So am I putting the odds on that happening super high? No, but like I think it's one of the percentile outcomes for him, and that's why they really targeted him. And then a name that I'd say is not as as highly rated already is Braden Davis. I really like his stuff, and I think he's again got swing and miss. I think he's a guy that again he's a little bit further away than maybe Henderson or Bryson Motts are at this point. I really like those guys too, but I think Braden Davis could be a guy who takes another step forward and becomes a really interesting prospect for the long term.
Yeah, how they handle Clark this year is going to be fun to see. Number one, how the injury history plays into it, but just what they do with this progression, and just to see, like, now that we're getting just more and more coverage of minor league games, just the ability to see that stuff is just going to be fun.
Yeah.
Moving on, number 4, who do you think is closing games for the Cardinals in 2026?
Yeah, I sat and thought about that one for a while. If I had to pick one, I think I'd go Riley O'Brien, because I think you talked about this before too. Like Matt Savancin can maybe be a little bit more of that fireman role for them, and maybe they like to keep him there for that. But my prediction actually for coming out of camp is I think they're probably going to go closer by committee, matchups based, especially if this bullpen ends up being more of like a sometimes 7-man group, sometimes 8-man group. Then I don't think they can afford to pigeonhole someone to the 9th inning all the time. And they kind of just got to go with A, the hot hand, B, like if you've got 2 lefties coming up in the 9th, well, yeah, JoJo could be your guy there. And Savancin maybe faces the guys in the 8th that are right-handed heavy. But I think O'Brien, Savancin, and Romero get those opportunities. I'm not going to be shocked, but I don't necessarily love the idea of Romero as the number one, like as the closer, because especially the lack of left-handed depth right now they have, or talking about Rocket at that point and Brill, and I don't really know who else you kind of look at that equation. So I think
Packy.
having him as Packy, oh yes, I'm actually excited to see Packy. That will be interesting. I always forget he exists. It's just like he's just been hurt, but Packy could be a part of that. But I think, with those matchups, I don't like putting when you've got options, but you don't have established options. And so I don't like putting your one established lefty in the 9th inning role. I also kind of want to get Romero as many good opportunities as possible to keep the trade value up. Like, again, he's not bad against righties by means, but he's dominant against lefties. And he's going to see righties regardless because it's today's game. But I would much rather keep him looking great toward that deadline and be like, here's this really dominant left-handed reliever who would like him, than to potentially mess his mojo up a little bit.
Yeah, chances are he'd already been used in the game by that point anyway. And if the Cardinals are holding the lead in the 9th inning, I think that's, more of a surprise than anything
That's
anyway
true.
at that point. So really, are there going to be a lot of games there to be closed or saved, I guess? And then the very last one with projections and stuff coming out, I changed it a little bit from what I sent you. I sent it from over under 72 wins, but I bumped it down one just to do an even 20 games under 500. Over or under 71 wins for this year, because Pacoda has the Cardinals at 66, Fangraphs has them at 77. How are they so different? Where do you fall?
I'm going to go over because I have him as a 73 win team right now. And I heard this and I cannot remember, and I hope I can find it at some point because I want to give credit to it. I don't think it's in our space. I think it was just like general baseball talk. But I think there's a good rule of thumb, I think, is whatever you like your model projects a team at. And so like I'd say my internal model, my brain projects the Cardinals at 73 wins. Then they could win 8 more games than that or lose 8 more games than that with like kind of how they're constructed. And so I think worst case scenario, they're a 67, 68 win team. And I think best case scenario, and this is truly best case scenario. I'm not saying like it's probably going to happen.
Get ready to clip.
Yeah. Well, look at this clip. 80 win Cardinal team. But I think there is a world, again, a small one and not likely one, where they could win 80, 81, 82 games because, you do look at the rotation right now and there's a lot of variance, but it could be better than last year's group because you were getting a lot of Michael Sanfetti starts. You look at the lineup and Nootbaar played a ton of games, but was bad. And Ivan Herrera only played 100 games. Alec Burleson, like he continues to ascend. You're getting JJ Weatherholt. Does Mason Wynn take a step forward? Is Jordan Walker not 60% below league average, but like 10% above? Like there's a lot of variance here that's like, oh, this team could actually be better. But I think there's too much variance, and it is such a young team that you probably predict that it's not going to go roses and butterflies and rainbows the whole time. So I've got them as a low 70, so I got them stamped at 73 wins. Would I be shocked if they go below? No. Would I be shocked if they go higher? No.
Okay. Every Cardinals fan I've asked about this has said like the Pacoda is just crazy at 66.
Yeah, it's
It would
low.
take a lot to get down there. That's 12 wins less than last year when you take the subtractions and then see what the replacement's going to be. Like that's tough to kind of figure out. So all the Cardinals fans have said yes, but is that the Cardinal colored glasses? Well, I asked a Rays fan when we were breaking down the Cardinals Donnie trade. They were at 69.5, and he's like, guys, where are your wins going to come from? And he's like, the division all got better. And that's where I'm like, did the division all get better? Yeah, the
Mm,
Pirates, I think they're somebody that we're going to have to talk about. But the Brewers are just throwing things like on the trade block and then seeing who will bite on it.
yeah.
Even with years of control and stuff like that. The Cubs are, Bregman was a great deal, but they don't have Tucker, which I think was a good move on there. But like, I don't think the division is that crazy to determine like the Cardinals aren't going to be able to compete in the division. So I think that 73 win number I would put as my expectations, but I would obviously like for them to be above that. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna, yeah, like with that, I think the Pirates, like to your point, are better, and I would put the Cardinals as the fifth team right now, and
Mhm.
on paper. But to your point, I don't think it's crazy to think they could be third, right? Like, I, I, I would be shocked if they finish above the Cubs and the Brewers, because I've learned not to bet against the Brewers. Like, it's just every year, I'm like, oh, they're finally gonna fall off, and then they're even better.
Mhm.
And then the Cubs, even with potential step back, like I think mostly they're better, or mostly they're about the same. Could be maybe a little bit better. The Reds are the weird one though. It's like I kind of forget they made the playoffs. Like
Mhm.
I don't see
Absolutely.
them as that good of a team. But yeah, well, it'll be an interesting year to see what the NL Central shakes out.
Well, is there anything Ellie De La Cruz can't do? He led his team to the playoffs. um, but that was a lot to sort through that we honestly won't get answers to until a month and a half from now, probably, unless something big comes through, injury
Yeah.
front or otherwise. So Josh, you broke this down great. Before I close this thing out, I want to thank you for joining, providing this launching pad to get this media thing a go. So for those listening, please give Josh some love. Josh, tell us everybody where we can find you so that they know where to find you talking Cardinals baseball.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, man. You can find me on X, Twitter, Josh JACO98. Obviously, Deal on the Cards. You can find it on YouTube, social media, all the podcast platforms as well. And then both Scott and I are over at Redbird Rants doing some writing over there. So if you want to check out written work, we're over there. So always appreciate the support. This is super fun community, Cardinal baseball. I'm selfish, or I'm probably biased on this one, but I truly believe it's the best. And for the most part, I mean, you always get trolls and things like that, but for the most part, people like to have critical thinking conversations and like hold that intention, and it's super fun. And then you can see who was right on the way out. And I think most people are excited to see this change and this new. And so we're gonna definitely be following along at Deal on the Cards and Redbird Rants, and personally, and I know Scott will be as well. So make sure, if this is your first time listening to Cardinals on My Time, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tune in long term too, because Scott's awesome.
Wow, I love that. I didn't even have to pay you for that one. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of bookmarked tweets from this offseason that are going to be coming out, whether for the better or for the worse. It's just going to be
It's
that
true.
interesting spot where it's the Facebook trolls or it's the and I don't want to say educated fan, but anyway, let's go ahead and give Josh and those accounts some love. They deserve it for all the stuff they're pushing out, like the growth that dealing the cards is doing, bringing on the cards Cardinals prospects and expanding to do that with Redbird Farmhands, and that whole group is awesome. So make sure that you head on over to all those platforms to follow them. So for Josh, I'm Scott Plaza. This was Cardinals on My Time. Thanks for hanging out.